What's my purpose? How many people out there have things that they want to do and they've never done them? And you're like, well, why haven't I done it? Am I afraid of failing? Am I afraid of like losing? Am I afraid of people looking at me saying he's not good enough? He's not smart enough. He's not good looking enough. He doesn't know what he's doing. Who's he to think he can do this? Who's Dave Scatchard to think he can write a book? Who's Dave Scatchard to think he can play in the NHL? The odds of that stuff are just so far extravagant. If I had a rational mind, my rational mind would go, you know what, Dave, it's like 1 in like millions to make the NHL. So like, let's just do something else. Because like, that's the odds are against you. Jason, you know that. So just shut it down now. Dave, a best-selling Amazon book. You know when people write books and never become bestseller? Yeah, I know, but I just have this thing on my heart. I got to get it out. Nah, you know what? Let's not do that because people might judge us and people might look down on us and people might say your story's crazy and da-da-da-da. It's so easy just to like pack it in because that's what the little weird voice on your shoulder is telling you. But where's that coming from? That's coming from some programming somewhere that somebody gave us that we've adopted as reality.
That was David Scatchard, and you are listening to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolin. Just watch me now. Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, and welcome back to the Up My Hockey Podcast with Jason Podolin. I am your host, Jason Podolin, and today we have Dave Scatchard, former guest of the Up My Hockey Podcast, back for another episode. Dave's interview, the first time through, part 1 we will call it now, was really one of the best of. I mean, I'm so proud of all the interviews and all the guests, but Dave's stories, Dave's connection to his career, the adversity that he faced, the things he overcame, they're all like so Up My Hockey perfect, that it's been one of the most celebrated interviews that I had to date. So part of that interview, though, and if you haven't listened to it, I definitely suggest you go back and listen to it. But part of the problem with the part 1, we'll call it, was that we didn't even get through probably, I think it was like a half of Dave's career. Like we didn't get into his concussions. We didn't get into when he had to leave the game and his comeback and all these things that happened. And we talked at the time about having him back to finish the interview, essentially. Now, Dave has a book out. And ironically, it's called The Comeback. So this book was released. I follow Dave on social and see what he's up to. And he was promoting the book. And I was like, well, hey, I'd love to help you promote this book. And maybe this will be, the reason we can finish part 2, right? That we originally planned. So Dave said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So I didn't have time to get the book and to read the book myself prior to this interview. I thought that we would just discuss it. And due to the title of the book, I assumed that it would cover the material I thought that we had not covered in the first episode. So we get into this, start talking about the comeback, start talking about his book, and quickly this interview departs from what I expected it to be and goes down a completely different road. Now, I think it's a road that's awesome, and I think it's a road that was totally worth going down, and I think it's one of the things that makes my podcast beautiful is that I do not have a structured set of questions that I'm methodically going down. I want it to be conversational. I want the discussion to go wherever it needs to go, and here you are going to be in for a surprise, just like I was on where this discussion leads to. That's about all I'm going to give you right now, but as with all things conversational, sometimes you just got to go there. And we went there. Dave went there full out. I went there full out. I know you're going to enjoy this. There's lots of gems and lots of good stuff, but maybe not quite the typical content you would get from me in an Up My Hockey episode. But without further ado, we welcome back to the podcast, Mr. David Scatchard. Enjoy. Hey, buddy.
Hey, look at that intro. Holy smokes.
I know, right? We're getting big league around here. Yeah.
Big league.
So welcome back to the program. It's Dave
Yeah.
Scatchard. Now, as I see on your name tag there, Amazon #1 bestseller. Great to have you with us, man.
I thought you'd get a kick out of that. Yeah, man. We're doing it, man. It has been we only spoke a few months ago, but things are cooking and things are going really well. And like you mentioned, we got the book out there and launched that, and that was scary and exhilarating at the same time. And yeah, it's taken off. So we're just trying to stay at #1 bestseller. And I saw some guy was trying to track us down at #1. I don't know if he passed us or not, but hopefully we can get back up on top. And it's funny because I don't normally care about this kind of stuff. Like, I haven't even checked like books don't really make a lot of money, everyone out there, but like I haven't even checked sales or anything. I've only checked like #1 status because like I hate losing. I just want to like be #1. And it was crazy. The first day that my publisher sent me, he said, hey, Dave, look who's #2. And it was like my book, and then Gretz's book, and then like 2 or 3 down was like Messier's book. And I was like, that's the only time I'll ever be ahead of those guys in like anything, and their books have probably been out a while. So it's like, all right, I'll take it. I took a picture of the screen and sent it to my mom, and I said that, this is kind of cool. And yeah, it's been so cool because it's made me realize that I think a lot of people wish they could write a book or have a story inside of them. So then people that I didn't even think cared about me or knew me or anything have reached out and said, hey, congrats on the book. It's awesome. And like, I wish I could do that one day, or that's really cool that you were brave enough to share your story. And yeah, it's wild because I'm getting things back as a gift that I wasn't really expecting. You know what I mean? I just knew that I had to get it out and just had to get it out, and done beats perfect. And we just got to get it out there. So we did.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Well, I mean, for those of you, some of my faithful listeners, like our first conversation, this is now our second, has did really well. And I've used some of this stuff even with my private clients, that you shared. And it was just an awesome conversation, which I really enjoyed. But as usually happens in my pod, like you miss just so much. And we essentially like only covered, I don't know if you remember, like kind of like the first half, not even of your career. Right. And then so now the book's out, and with the comeback, and I haven't had a chance to read it yet because it just came out. I assume that's you like leaving the NHL and then making your way back to it on a personal level and also as an athlete. And we never even talked about that last time. So what a great opportunity to get back here, get Scatch on. We'll promote the book, which why not? Of course we want to do that, and then we'll probably get into the stuff that we miss. So, anyways, you were gracious enough to say, yeah, let's do it, and here we are.
Yeah, of course. Anything you need, and I love all my hockey buddies, and I appreciate them going for it and putting themselves out there, and I appreciate all my Canadian listeners and the Okanagan people and all that. So yeah, anything you ever need, you got it. And as far as the title of the book, it's interesting that you assume that that's what the title is, right? There's a little twist to the story. So I'm not going to even go there. I've blown it on a couple other podcasts where I kind of spoil the ending, but it's different than most people think. And I was really nervous about doing it and saying it all and telling the truth. But since I have, it's been amazing, the doors and communication that's opened up for me already. And yeah, it's just what I had to do. So
right. So okay, so then good stuff. So there's some irony or some coincidence, or there's something in that title that is going to leave us surprised. Is there something that you can share about that? I know you're I mean, you've been into personal development now for a long time, probably even before you knew it was called personal development. And then, with kind of your dark days and what you went through there, I know coming out from that there was a lot of introspection and a lot of research and coaches and everything else along there. Is there something to do with the personal journey that you can share outside of the hockey scheme?
I'm just gonna have to blow it again because I can't keep a secret. But yeah, man, this when we were trying to, and here's what it looks like. So when we were trying to come up with the title and the book cover and what it was about, there are multiple comebacks that I make during this book, and it's kind of like this resiliency and this like way to keep going when a normal person would stop, or when it just becomes too much. And then, the irony of that title of that book is, oh shoot, I might as well just say it. During my last injury, my 5th concussion, I died. I left my body, and I began leaving my body, looking down on my body while the trainer was working on me, while the paramedics were working on me, while they're wheeling me off on a stretcher. And that literally just went into like blackness. And, this is all in the book. So if you're getting it, you're going to read it anyway. So, right. So I'm in this darkness. I'm watching myself leave my body. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And for everyone out there, like, I didn't grow up in church or anything, so like I don't really have any spiritual experience other than just praying and on my own and stuff. And after a certain point in this void, what was revealed to me was the most beautiful thing that I can ever explain, and that was this expansive space of just pure light. Like the most beautiful light that you could ever imagine. But the crazy thing about the light was that it had like depth to it. It was actually like pure love. So I know we're warming up the podcast pretty quickly here, but it's like we go from like chit chat to like, all right, let's talk about it. So this pure love just started to pour into me and just like melt me to the point where there was no Dave, there was no body. And what was crazy was I could breathe like forever. Like there was no stopping point for my in-breath, and there was no weight, and there was no stress, there was no worry, there was no burden, there was no doubt, there was no fear, there was no anxiety. It was like literally being like free. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I just started crying. I felt like so overwhelmed by how beautiful it was and how loved I felt. I actually felt like I didn't deserve the love. Like I felt like something was undeserving of me, of receiving that love. So anyways, sorry, I'm trying to adjust something here on my camera. So this love comes pouring into me, and I don't know what is possibly happening. And at a certain point, I didn't see a man in a robe or anything like you'd think, like, what I felt though was the light like lift me up like a little child and start to like stroke my hair and hold me. And the light was like pouring into me, like filling my heart with so much love, and then exploding out of me at the same time, to the point where like there was no separation between me and the light. Like I was the light and the light was me, but the light was like radiating out of me and exploding out of me. And I just sat there and I just cried. And after a little while, I started this communication, and I was like confused, and the message back to me, like I'd think it's something, and then the message back would be like instant. It just kept saying like, you'll be okay. It's going to be okay. Don't worry. And I'm just like, what's going on? And it's okay. You're home now. It's okay. That's like, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like what's happening? And, I'm scared and all this. And it's like, it's okay. It was just like a parent's like love, like telling a little kid, like, it's going to be okay. And at a certain point, I started just walking with the light, and I'm holding the light's hand. And I felt like a little boy just walking with the light, and the light was taking me somewhere. Okay. Now, up until this point, it was the most beautiful experience ever. Like the most blissful, free, soft, loving state that you've ever could imagine, beyond anything earthly. And I end up just glancing down, and I had this weird vision for like 2 seconds. And it was my 1-year-old, my 2-year-old, my 4-year-old, and my wife at my funeral, all wearing black, dressed in black. And they were at my funeral, and the casket was starting to go into the ground. And my littlest guy, my 1-year-old, ran up to the casket and just was crying and threw himself on the top of the casket as it was starting to go into the ground. And the first scoop of dirt from the gravedigger guy hit my little guy on the back of his black suit. Like I could picture it like so clearly. It was like crazy. And I just stopped walking. And I said to the light, I'm like, can I go back? And it was like loving in a way. It's like, well, you can, but you don't have to. Everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I think I have to go back. And once again, the message to me was, you don't have to. Everything's going to be okay. And this went on back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until the point where I just said, my kids are pretty little. I don't think that they can go without a dad. I think I want to go back. And here I am. Imagine this, Jason. It's like you're finally made it. It's like you're at the finish line. It's like everything's perfect and you're happy and it's unbound and it's loving and it's like, ah. And then you're like, I got to go. It's like, what? No, you don't have to go anywhere. You're here. You're home. I'm like, I said, I don't think I can. And it was almost like laughing like a dad would. It's like, listen, you don't have to. It's okay. And I'm like, I know. But I think I want to. I think I must go home. It's like, okay, if you want to go, you can go, but you don't have to. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And I said, look, I know you're real. This is beyond anything that I could imagine. What do you want me to do when I go back? Like, give me a mission. Like, am I supposed to go sell all my stuff and go do some mission trip and give all my money away? Like, just tell me what you want me to do. And the message was so simple and beautiful. And you can imagine this is what God would want. He said, I want you to take this feeling of pure, unconditional love that you feel right now, this joy and this happiness. And I want you to take that back with you. I want you to share it with each and every person that you come across and look into their eyes and love them like they're your brother or your sister, because they are. And I said, that's it? Like, I can do that. It's like, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, is there anything else? Like right before I was about to go, I turned around. I said, is there anything else? And the message back to me was, I just want you to share this story too. Share the story. So I came back. I did the first part perfectly. And I kept that a secret for like a year and a half. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell the trainers. I didn't tell anybody. And it's like our ego, right? Like I didn't want people to think I'm a weirdo or like that I'm a Bible thumper or that like this, that, or that some like weird thing. And I was afraid of what people would think if I told the truth about what I saw. So I didn't. Like usual, old Dave would just bottle it up and shove it in the corner and hope it doesn't come up and just try to be normal and fit in and all the old patterns. And it took probably 2 or 3 bottles of wine with Matthias Oland at my house in Scottsdale. He came to visit and we got into the wine and he started asking me about my concussions because we hadn't seen each other in a long time. And Oli and I used to be roommates in Vancouver, and him and his wife were there, and my wife was out of town. And I said, I got to tell you like the truth. Like I saw this, like I don't know how to describe it. Like it was insane. Like, and his jaw's on the floor, his wife's jaw's on the floor, and he's like, "What does Brooke say?" My wife, and I go, "I haven't told her." He's like, "You haven't told your wife?" I'm like, "No." I go, "I was afraid," and I was afraid because there was a huge part of me that didn't want to come back. Like I was in perfection. Like, why would you leave that? And then Jason, what happened was when I came back down here, I thought it would be all, I've got the secret. I've been blessed, like da 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 da. And it was the exact opposite, bro. I went through hell. And I was coming back into my body. I'm in the paramedics thing. They cut off all my gear. My skates are still on. And I'm still blissed out. I just got a dislocated jaw, broken nose, broken ribs, broken collarbone from the hit, bleeding in my brain. And as I'm coming into my body, I'm saying to the paramedics, I'm like, "Oh my God, did you guys see that? Like, that was amazing." And they're like, "Sir, you've been in an accident. You're at the hotel. You've been unconscious for the last 11 minutes. We're going to take you up and get a brain MRI. We're going to see if you might have broke your neck." I was on a spinal board. And then I slowly started to come back into my body. And the weight of this place and the injuries and the pain and the heaviness of being here as opposed to there, that almost killed me again. It felt like an elephant was just sitting on me, squishing the life out of me. That's how like bad it felt after being there. And it just got worse for 3 years, man. The headaches, the memory was gone. I had no memory. I was like retarded. My brain just didn't work. I would try to think of a thought and it would just disappear. When I was a kid, I had a really good memory. It was like borderline photographic where I could be in tests and stuff and I could pull up pages and I could like read paragraphs and stuff of stuff that I studied before. Now, fast forward, I'm 35 years old, broken. I can't remember like anything. My long-term memory, I could remember my whole childhood perfectly. I couldn't remember anything from like yesterday or an hour ago or 30 minutes ago. And it was terrifying, bro. Like I thought I was losing and then 3 years at the Mayo Clinic, I'm taking Alzheimer's medicine at the age of 35. I'm dragging my leg when I walk. I slur my speech. I'm fat. I can't sleep. My headaches never go away. I'm drinking myself to sleep. And I'm sitting there. And what do you think? How good do you think I felt about my decision to come back here was when it was the worst position I'd ever been in physically and mentally, not to mention losing your identity as a hockey player too. Like that's a huge thing for just people normally. But when your brain's broke and you're thinking crazy thoughts and stuff, like it gets pretty dark pretty quick. So don't worry, guys. The story gets better. It does have a happy ending, but I had to take you there with me because that was my reality. I was freaking terrified. And if it wasn't for some miracles that happened, and if I would have accepted the Mayo Clinic, the best doctors in the world told me, they're like, "Dave, we ran every protocol we have for you for the last 3 years. And there's just parts that aren't going to heal. Like, we're sorry, but when the brain's been damaged like this, it's called permanent disability. You'll be permanently disabled, and that's okay. Like, you can still sort of function." I went out to my truck and I just started bawling. I'm sitting in my car just crying. And I remember like being a pretty warm day in Scottsdale and I'm just crying in my car. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, I couldn't work. I couldn't take care of my kids. I couldn't take care of myself. I was in pain constantly with the headaches. Like, it never went away. And I just wanted to like escape and like check out. And yeah, it's weird to even talk about it now because like I'm so far past that. But like writing this book and having to go back there and like share some of this stuff as part of my comeback. Like, my comeback was from heaven back here is the real comeback, and nobody knows that. So that's the twist of the book. But the book is very exciting and everything leading into this, and then it's just like, what the hell? Where did this come from? And then the next phase is about like rebuilding it all from scratch, and some miracles where I finally got to reconnect to that love and that light in like the most intimate, beautiful way. And the point now where like there is no separation again between me and that. So yeah, that's what 12 chapters that's where it takes us.
Wow, man, that's that's quite a ride. And as I'm listening there, I was just being present with you and what you were saying, and trying to keep my interview head on too, like, 'cause there's so many, curiosities and questions, obviously, that come along with what you just shared there. One of which is, that's essentially an NDE, which I've actually done. I've done a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but I have read probably more than most people have about them. And this is a hockey podcast, but you've now talked about creator and God and these types of things, and that was something that I definitely explored quite extensively in my 20s, which is because I was raised Catholic, right? Mm-hmm. So I was raised Catholic. My mom was Catholic. It was really important for her that I went to church and did the Sunday school and the whole 9 yards, and was confirmed and baptized, and then I was like, just my nature, it was just like, I'm curious, and some of the stuff didn't really make sense to me. And then I went on this sort of exploration of, world religions and everything else, fell into NDEs and read about people's first person experiences and what that was all about. And yeah, like you're at, which I'm sure at this point, a lot of what you're saying there seems to be pretty common with the people who have experienced them. These near-death experiences, right? The light and the love and the connection, and it's like it's what people experience.
What's weird is I purposely have not gone down the NDE road because I wanted to remember my experience until I got it out in the book, right? Like I didn't want it to be cross-pollinated with somebody else's stuff or whatever. So like I want it to be pure of my own. But since I started to talk openly about this, the common stories are just flooding in. Like people all over the world are like, dude, the same thing happened to me. And oh my goodness. And like this feeling of like oneness and connectedness. And, my wife was reading this and she grew up Southern Baptist, and like, I didn't grow up in church. So like, I kind of don't have a pre-frame about like what church is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I think it's a blessing to me because I don't have the rules and the checklist to make sure that this is God or this is not God or this is the right way or it's not the right way. I don't have any of that. So for me, it's just really purely authentic, and my experience is what took me there. So, I think there is a line in the book, and I might have to take it out because like I don't want it to be misinterpreted. But what I was sharing was that I think sometimes the confines of the church stop the connection of people because they think it has to be this way to be God. Okay? God can be, and the Holy Spirit can be a loving feeling that you get, or this warmth that comes over you and melts your heart at a certain point. God can be this whisper of encouragement or love that you feel coming out of the blue. I don't necessarily believe that you have to be doing your Hail Marys or sitting inside of a church to be connected. I truly am being, like, honestly, it sounds weird, but it's like I feel like I'm being given the next steps like all throughout my life. And the more that I act on them, the more quickly I get more. So it's almost like when you're listening and God's like, oh, I got one here. We got a live one here, right? And fearlessly. It's a true story. I had these experiences. I come back. I'm walking through Target down here in Scottsdale. I hadn't seen my family in a couple of days. We're all walking around Target. We get this shopping thing. We're going through the checkout, and I walk by, and God's like, you got to help her. And I'm like, where'd this voice come from, first of all? And secondly, help who? And I look behind me, and there's this big old checkout girl. Okay, she's quite overweight, and that was the message. I had to go like speak to her, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. And God's like, yes, you do. So I walk back. There's a lineup of people like waiting to go next. And I said to her, excuse me, is it okay if I give you a hug? Okay, Jason, you got to understand, we never spoke. Like, we don't know each other. And she just bursts out crying, and she lays her head on my chest, and we just cry together. And there's people in line, like instantaneously, like we were like I knew her and she knew me. There was no separation, just like in heaven, right? And I whispered in her ear all these things. Like, it was like messages were just coming through. And I'm just like, listen, you are so loved. Like, you have no idea how loved you are. And someone gave me a message to give to you, to tell you that you're loved. And I don't know you and you don't know me, but we know each other. I gave her a little peck on the cheek, and I walked out, wiping tears out of my eyes. I walk out, my wife's standing by the car because I have the car keys, right? She hasn't turned around yet. I come out, I'm wiping tears. She's like, what's going on, Dave? I'm like, just God stuff. Don't worry about it. And I never, so then my kids are like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And I told them the story. My wife's like, you're crazy. And I'm like, well, I don't know, I guess, but it was right. And the more times that I listen and I just follow without like judging it and be like, what do you mean I'm supposed to go talk to that guy standing over there in the corner at the party? Like, what do you mean I'm supposed to ask? And listen, Jason, this is where it gets really scary. It's like when I have a feeling, like I'll be like, do you have a brother that's in the military or something? And the guy's like, what do you mean? Oh my God, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I think he's like thinking about you right now. It's so wild, bro. So anyways, I don't want to get all weird people out or anything like that. It's nothing like that. But there's some kind of blessing that I believe people get when they step into true alignment, where there's just a sense of knowing and a sense of connectedness and oneness and authenticity that goes along with that. That's just like harmonious. And it's just kind of like, it's almost like one heartbeat of like everything. And there is no separation. And that's like kind of the beautiful thing that I now understand, but it didn't come until I removed all the armor and all the masks and all the stuff that I used to cover up the purest version of like little David, my little 5-year-old self that was like this pure little sensitive kid that loved helping people. And, you know, I hadn't been programmed yet by society or rules or anything. I just was. Like, before somebody told you, Jason, a good boy does this or a good girl does this. Otherwise, you're not a good boy or a good girl. You go and you put that in your data bank, and all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm never doing that because I want to be a good boy, right? Right? If you don't do well on a test, you're dumb. Well, or you fail. Like, the fear of failure in our society today is insane. So people just don't try stuff because they're afraid of judgment or failure. When who made up those rules that memorizing vocabulary words made you smart? Like, who made up the rules about these certain tests and how they affect your ability to be intelligent? There's so many other ways to be intelligent than for memorization. Like, it's a weird broken model that the more that I look at it, it's like, who am I? Who's Dave Scatchard? Who's Jason Patola? What's my mission now? Like, why am I on this earth? Is it to go get straight A's? Because I did that, and that didn't really make me very happy, right? Like, what's my purpose? How many people out there have things that they want to do and they've never done them? And you're like, well, why haven't I done it? Am I afraid of failing? Am I afraid of like losing? Am I afraid of people looking at me saying he's not good enough? He's not smart enough. He's not good looking enough. He doesn't know what he's doing. Who's he to think he can do this? Who's Dave Scatchard to think he can write a book? Who's Dave Scatchard to think he can play in the NHL? The odds of that stuff are just so far extravagant. If I had a rational mind, my rational mind would go, you know what, Dave, it's like one in like millions to make the NHL. So like, let's just do something else. Because like, that's, the odds are against you. Jason, you know that. So just shut it down now. Dave, a best-selling Amazon book. You know how many people write books and never become bestseller? Yeah, I know, but I just have this thing on my heart. I got to get it out. Nah, you know what? Let's not do that because people might judge us and people might look down on us and people might say your story's crazy and da-da-da-da. It's so easy just to like pack it in because that's what the little weird voice on your shoulder is telling you. But where's that coming from? That's coming from some programming somewhere that somebody gave us that we've adopted as reality. I know this is a hockey pod, but I want to take you guys with me here because this is how my brain works. It's like my real life experiences have taken me right here, right now to this podcast for a reason. There's a message for somebody that's listening. So let's go there. I'm okay with that.
Just going to take a break from the pod just to acknowledge Mental Health Awareness Day, which was this past weekend, which I think correlates perfectly to what this interview is and what Dave himself had gone through in his career and as a person. And that is some dark days, and that is some dark times. And now here Dave is on the other side of those dark times. You know, he pushed out of the pit, as he has called it himself, and now he's in a place of leadership and he's in a place of growth. And he actually acknowledges and celebrates his dark days as some of the reasons of why he's able to do what he does now so well. And that's connect with people and help them achieve the best that they can be. So mental health awareness is massively relevant. It's relevant to this show in a way that we are in control of our thoughts. I think we are in control of our mental fitness. With the help of others, sometimes we need, but there are tools and strategies and techniques out there that can be useful for you. And it's also relevant to have this awareness because you are not alone. And the mantra is it's okay to be okay. And I'm 100% in agreement with that because oftentimes we feel isolated when things aren't going well or things aren't going our way or things aren't going our way for a long time. And we get caught in habits that allow these thought processes to continue. The downward spiral to continue. Just recognize you're not alone. That people like Dave Scatchard, like myself, like Carey Price, who recently had to step away from the game, go through times where they need support. So don't feel like you have to do this on your own, and don't feel like you are alone on this journey. It's a self-awareness to recognize you're in a place you don't want to be is one thing, and that's amazing. And the second thing is to do something about it. That's what I do with my clients. Whatever the thing is, don't think that you got it under control and you will handle it. Because oftentimes when we think that we are going to handle it, what that means is we isolate and we don't change anything. So now all we've changed is that we isolate ourselves, we're not talking to anybody, and we're not actually changing the habits that might have resulted in where we're at right now. So realize there are things you can do. Realize there is support there. Realize also that the best thing you can do is to not internalize, is to either write, speak, get it out of your head to someone or to paper or somewhere, something, and get the help that you need. This is a human condition. It's not just to you. Again, it is okay to be okay. And it's people like Dave Scatchard who share their story and let people see inside their lives that allow others to think, you know what? Maybe I'm not alone here. So realize you're not alone and realize there is help, and please be courageous enough to go seek it. Whether you're a hockey player, football player, or a student at school, no one is too strong or too resilient or too macho to have this not affect them, right? Realize that it is a human condition and we all go through it, and I encourage you to get the help that you need. Now back to the episode with David Scatchard.
Oh, of course. And I think that there's parallels for sure for people listening. Not everyone's going to have your experience, of course, but I mean, what you're talking about there with the mistakes and the fear of failure and other people's opinion and judgment and all these things require courage, and they require an approach and a perspective that I think do apply to what this whole podcast is all about, which is growth and development. And a lot of things that I think the secret sauce for players right now is personal growth, like not more power skating and not more skills. It's like, how do you become a better person? And when you do that, when you develop the person, you're the athlete, right? The committed, dedicated athlete that's prepared to go a little extra, to get a little uncomfortable, to do these things, is going to allow you to chase these goals and dreams that these players have. And I think, like, for me, like, that's a parallel to what you're talking about, like you in the book and you and everything is like, you're always prepared to take one more step. You're always prepared to go a little bit farther. And my gosh, if that's not a positive, inspiring message for anyone in the hockey world, I don't know what is.
Yeah, man. No, I totally agree with you. And like, let's just say that I had and I've used this a couple of times. So well, you probably haven't heard it, but when I coach, I teach this. It's like, when you have if I gave you the perfect toolbox and it had all the tools that you needed to win at life, but your toolbox was just too small. There's tools that you'll never get to use because they can't put them in your toolbox. Like part of it is expanding our toolbox. Part of it is getting more bandwidth or more hard drive space so that we can bring in these new tools and these new ideas. And that starts with mindset. You're 1,000% right. Like I could have the best training program. I could have the best book. I could have the best philosophy in the world. But if your brain is limited in its capacity to expand or to open up or to have a new idea or a new philosophy and let your brain go there and have this possible breakthrough, if it's not wired right, it's just going to revert back to the default, which is like what you've been doing. And my guess is that what you've been doing probably hasn't been good enough in some way where you felt this hunger, where there is a hunger to be more and do more, right? We all have it. So how do you hijack that and rip it out and just create all this extra space to download as much as you need and just go there and like be open to it and let it like take you where it takes you without judging it and be like, listen, I guess this is where it's going. I don't know where the hell this book's going. I don't know what stage I'm going to be speaking on. I don't know what podcast I'm going to get on. Doesn't matter. What matters is I was given the message to share the story. So I share it. If Jason Padolan calls and says, hey, let's get you on the pod again, I'm like, boom, done. I don't know where it's going to go. But if it helps one person, I'm freaking all in. Right. And that's the game. And I love what you said about the mindset and that being a difference maker. And, there's another part about like becoming somebody better. But I also think that there's a version of me and of you and of everyone listening that has done the thing. Okay, so like let's visualize this. There's a version of me that never made it to the NHL. But that version didn't do the things that I did. There was a version of me that was going to make that NHL. And what I did was I visualized that person coming back from the future, because I'm an external being, and that future coming back and telling me the steps that I was going to have to take to do that. I talk about asking for ankle weights for my 9th birthday. I talk about riding my rollerblades and racing the school bus to school every day with the kids cheering out the window while I'm racing every day to school. And I had a couple mile ride to go. I talk about wearing a backpack full of weights and my ankle weights at practice to try to like make my legs stronger, and puking and all the guys laughing at me because I pushed myself so hard during the bag skates. But in my mind, it made sense. Didn't make sense to anybody else, right? And like, there's another thing is like, it's your vision that you're given. So don't expect other people to understand your vision. It's your vision. It's not their vision. You're going to have haters your whole life. People will be like, that's stupid. What are you doing? Dave, you're never going to make the NHL. Okay, that's okay. I just feel like you don't know who the hell is inside of me at all. So you can't judge me. And, Jason, this is really a huge piece is like, and you've got it because you're starting to put yourself out there and expand. But there are people that need to hear your message, right? That don't know. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my camera. There are people that need to hear your message that don't know that you have the show. There are people that are meant to hear my message that don't know I exist. And it's going to take me putting myself out there daily to be able to do what I need to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right with that whole scenario. Like me doing this, there's a growth process to being able to be in front of a camera, to be able to speak passionately about something that I think can help, and so you're right in that. Like in my own way, I had to get out of my own way in order for this to happen. And with the intention of being, how the hell do you help? How do you help? And kind of feeling like in alignment. I shouldn't say kind of. Now feeling more than ever that I'm in alignment with where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And just being brave enough to talk about it. Like talking about developing the person instead of the hockey player in the hockey world. I mean, you know that. I mean, that's like people are like, what is he talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But once you have a stage and once you're able to explain it, it starts to think in, and it's starting to make a really big difference, right? To approach that whole approach, right, is kind of upside down for what people are used to hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And not that this is like, revolutionary type stuff. I don't mean to make it bigger than it is, but for me to be able to speak on those terms, knowing that there's going to be resistance and knowing that there's going to be some, as you say, haters or eyeball rollers, whatever the case may be, it requires some bravery, courage, whatever that may be,
Yeah. I'll give you something that you're going to love and probably use forever. And it's like, when I realized that it's not about Dave Scatchard or Jason Podolin, and like the message just needs to get out there, and there's somebody that needs to hear it, and they're hurting right now, and you're worried about your feelings or being hated on, or I'm worried about looking perfect or sounding perfect or writing the perfect book or getting the perfect lighting or having the perfect program. The longer I wait, the more suffering that person goes through. And trust me, like through my programs, I've had suicidal people, I've had crazy people that we've saved. And it's like, if I wasn't there, they wouldn't be here. And I've gotten those letters. If I didn't get brave and step up and serve for no agenda other than to serve for the right reasons, who knows what would have happened. And that's the crazy part, is like, you imagine, this is personally what I visualize. I'm going to share this with all of you, and I hope you all get to use it. If I'm ever afraid of launching a product or a program or a book or a service or a live event or whatever, or a speaking gig, I imagine, like, let's just say 5,000, 10,000 people standing outside of a building, say in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, during an ice storm. And I'm supposed to go on stage, and they're there to see me. They're there to hear the message that I've been given to share with them. And I'm backstage. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do it. I don't know if it's good enough. Like, I don't know if we should, let's just cancel the event. Let's not do it because I'm scared. And all those people are freezing outside, and they're starting to die of like hypothermia and stuff because they're waiting on me. Like, when am I going to show up? Like, when's Jason going to show up and serve big? When's Dave going to show up and serve like big? And once I open up those doors, that building's nice and warm, and everybody comes in and they get what they came there for. But the longer that I'm worried about Dave Scatchard and his feelings, and if this makes sense, or this is politically correct, or the more that they're freezing to death out there, and they need to get inside. And I hope that helps you guys be brave when you run into something scary, because most of the time we'll do something more for other people than we will for our own selves. So I love that visual for me, because it just makes me be able to be brave and be like, you know what, I just got to go, like, hit record, let's go. And whatever comes up, and the message will come. If you don't even need to be prepared. It's like whatever you were supposed to share will flow through you. This podcast wasn't scheduled to probably go this way, but it's going this way, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it.
I agree. Yeah, no, I just, you got to flow. The more I get out of my way, the better usually stuff happens. The better programs that I've created, that whole thing. And you love, I know you're in the same boat, and you're talking about life and death. I mean, I don't get life and death thank yous, but I do get letters from parents, letters from players that, like, you make a big difference for, like, with whatever the message is or the communication is, and you get them through something. And that is like exactly why you do what you do. And that's the thing, is like, that gets me fired up, is like, yes. And sometimes those come just at the right time, right? Like, it's just like, oh my goodness, I needed to hear that, to keep me rolling.
Perfect. So, like, let's just imagine that you're the creator, you're God, you're the universe, and all of a sudden, like, Jason's listening, and Jason delivers and serves like perfectly. Like, wouldn't the energetic field want to send you a reminder and like something that says, like, confirmation, like, hey, good job, keep doing this, like, you're helping people, right? I look at those thank you letters as like, do more of this, right? It's like, thank you, I appreciate you. You saved my life. You changed my mindset. You saved my marriage. You did whatever it is that I did. And I'm like, okay, good. That's working. Let's do more of that. And it's like if the energy field is trying to send you information, I listen to the field all the time, which is so cool because it's speaking all the time. It's speaking from me through you through the listeners. There's people out there right now, they're like nodding their head. They're going, wow, I could probably do some of this stuff. I could probably change the way I think. I could probably look at life a little differently. Look at spirituality or religion a little differently. Like, I'm not here to ram anything down anybody's throat. I'm just here to share my story. And whatever anybody picks is what they pick. And I don't have any judgment towards it. It's all perfect.
Let's go back to that moment. That was one of the things that I was wondering. So you had 11 minutes that you were unconscious, that you were told.
Yeah.
Was there a moment there on that stretcher that you did, like their heart stopped beating? Like, was there a moment that these people actually brought you back?
That's a great question. I don't know. All I know is that my trainer, Chris Palmer, the next day said that was the most scared he'd ever been on the ice with a player. And I blew it off. I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll be fine. I didn't if you open up that vault and you want to tell them what's really going on in your crazy head and all, like, I would have been committed probably, because I was not thinking rationally. I was not, and I kept it all to myself. And I went into my movie theater in my little Scottsdale home here and hid for like 2 years. Just, I couldn't be in the bright lights. I didn't want to be around loud sounds. I literally just went into hiding. Like, some of my best buddies didn't know how bad it was. If I can't play around a golf, like, something's wrong with me. You know what I mean? And like, they'd be like, Scatch, you want to come golf? I'm like, no. And I just kept turning everybody away because they didn't want to. It's weird. Like, my pride didn't want people to see me so broken. And I was embarrassed. And I just went into hiding. I mean, it's scary. Like, we need to be around people. We need to share our thoughts. We need to talk about mental health. Like, we need to be honest. We need to be real. And as a hockey player, I just learned to I just deny it. I'm like, well, I'm not in pain, or I'm okay, or I don't need anybody, or I'll be fine. I'll heal up. And it's like, none of it was happening because I was like out of alignment and I was not being real.
All right.
The healing came when I got naked and vulnerable and honest and stopped trying to be the tough hockey player. There's nobody trying to take my job anymore. Nobody trying to fight me. No coach is trying to bench me. So why was I wearing all this armor still around, trying to be like all hard and tough? Like, it's heavy to wear that armor when you're no reason to.
Right.
So it's way better. I've shared this on every single podcast, but I remember being at a Tony event, Tony Robbins, and Tony told me, he goes, Dave, a wizard can do more in his pinky than a gladiator can do in his lifetime. So I'm like, all right, well, why don't I just try to be a wizard? I tried the gladiator thing and it didn't work out so good. So maybe I'll look at the wizard thing and see what that's about.
So that moment on the ice, that was from a body check?
Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that I could find online?
You know what? I've actually never looked for it. I was playing in Peoria and Scott Ford hit me from Milwaukee. He was actually a friend of mine. And hit me 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, kind of head on. I was looking at my pass that I had already made. And I was actually awake for like the first few seconds. And then I just conked right out. And I don't really remember. Like, I had to watch the team's video to see what actually happened because I didn't know.
That was in 2011?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was post your first hockey comeback then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Crazy. So then that was the end of your hockey career.
Yeah. And then, like, check it out. So I'm thinking the whole time, God's punishing me. Like, he's punishing me. Why is God punishing me? I made the wrong decision. Like, every day. I'm like telling myself this. So you can imagine how that makes you feel. So then
just so I understand your thought process. So you're saying punishing you for choosing to come back?
No, like putting putting this, well, that's an interesting thought. I never thought of that. I thought more like, I don't know, like rejected or something. I don't know. Like it was weird because I knew God was real, but I'm like, why am I suffering? If God's real, I should be his angel on earth and just run around and help everybody. And like, why aren't I? But this is where it gets trippy. So I put this in the book after the second miracle. And the first one was removing the masks and armor. And then the second one was this kind of swish pattern thing that I was doing with this mental imagery in my head. So I'm brushing my teeth, and this is after the second miracle, and I'm brushing my teeth, and God starts to speak to me through my own eyes. So it's so weird. So I'm brushing my teeth, and then this message starts to come to me, and it's like, hey, I'm so sorry that I made you suffer like that for so long. But you needed to live there and understand that intimately, because the people that are going to be coming to you are going to be coming to you from places like that. And if you only had this thing to the NHL, you wouldn't understand it. I wouldn't be able to teach it or help them out of it. So I had to live there and know that feeling. So if somebody comes to me in these weird states, super depressed or overwhelmed or anxiety, and like, I'm not calling in all those clients, but that seems to be like a lot that find me. I can relate now. I know what depression, I never knew what depression felt like before, ever. I'd be like, suck it up. Let's go. Let's be happy. Let's get energy. I had no compassion. Like I had no empathy for like sad people. Like, I'm just like, let's go. Let's be positive. And then like, I lived there and I'm like, oh, wow. Like you almost can't even see the light when you're at this lower vibration because there's just survival. Like you're just trying to stay surviving. You're not even thinking about thriving. And that energy level is so much lower, that vibration is so much less that you can't even think about anything grandiose because you're just trying to hang on by the skin of your teeth. And then it took some rewiring of my brain to be able to like start to like, okay, let's build on this. What do we got here? And then, and I come out of the pit and then I'm in neutrality. And then I'm like, how do I optimize again? And then ratchet up. And I'm like, okay, I think I got this. Let's see how many people we can help do this with. And last year we had 17,000 people go through our free challenge, so we're having some impact and helping people. And they didn't have to be rich clients or celebrity or athletes. That was a 7-day free challenge. We did it 4 times and, got to help a lot of people. And that was what I was called to do at the time. So it's always changing and it's okay. Like, I don't know where it's going, but I'll go there wherever I'm supposed to go. And yeah, man, it's like, this is my second go around now. So this is just for fun. This is a free roll, Jason. This is like, I can't lose. Like
for 10 years. Like, so like that, like you said, you didn't want to tell anyone.
No.
So you had this experience. You kept it to yourself.
Yeah.
You've called it the pit. I've heard you talked about that before. You get down in the pit. You're experiencing this depression like you've never experienced before, yet you've had this euphoric experience, right? And this new connection to this other being or God, whatever you want to call it. Yet the message is now 10 years later, right? So like you said, things happen as they happen. What was that experience like?
Yeah, this is coming to me right now. So like, let me share it. So what if I wasn't developed enough as a man myself to be able to share the message maturely if I would have gave it 10 years ago? Like, I don't think I would have been ready to share it.
Right.
I wouldn't have had the resources. I wouldn't have had the setup already. Like, it's set up to help hundreds of thousands of people this year. I built that infrastructure into my life and my business. But if you gave me that when I was injured 10 years ago, and you gave me 1 million people in my challenge, I'm like, sorry, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this.
Right.
You give it to me now and I'm like, hey, let's go. Let's serve. Let's go. So that gift was held back. That's cool. That's a breakthrough for me today, is like, I didn't even realize that I didn't have the bandwidth. Right. We were talking about that at the beginning. I didn't have the container that could do all of this before. It wouldn't have made sense. It would have not been positioned properly. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I agree. It's amazing when you just let things, I shouldn't say let, because it's not like you let things go and let this things happen, but when you do let go, right? And like, and allow yourself to develop and how things move and not have it be all analyzed and, this is the way it has to be. It seems to work,
Yeah.
like,
So I don't want to interrupt, but I'm getting this. So like, what if it's like when you're playing hockey, right? And you're trying to play perfect position and play perfect defense and just you're overthinking the game. You're trying not to lose the game. When you had your best games and you're scoring your hat tricks as a kid and stuff, I bet you don't even remember half of those games. It's just like easy. It's just flow. Like, what if life was like that? What if like getting into that sweet spot in life? Like, I believe that the zone, everyone thinks it's like miraculous to like see Michael Jordan being in the zone or all these people like that seem to be in the zone a lot. What if that's actually how we're supposed to be the whole time? And anything less than that is just the programming. Because in the zone, you're free. There are no rules. It's a different world. It's a different realm that you're living in during that special moment that you're playing. So what if we could live our life in the zone?
Yeah.
And then that's partly getting back to your optimizing the person or the player and making them a better hockey player by making them a better person. It's the same thing. You're like up leveling their whole life, which is what I agree with the whole holistic model. I want the whole thing to be good. Yeah. If somebody's business and their finances and their relationship are all better, there's a good chance that they'll probably be happier and probably perform better. So why don't we just optimize the whole system? So I'm with you, man. It's like, perfectionism and fear of failure and judgment stop so many dreams before they even get a chance to get going.
Yeah. That just came. So I just created this program called the Peak Potential Hockey Project. It was like essentially on a whim in June. I shouldn't say on a whim. It was back here, right? It was one of those things, like all the things that you read and all the experiences you have and helping clients and moving forward. And it was just sort of percolating back there. Like what would happen? And then the sequence of events, like my wife getting me started on this program. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm just going to make this thing. Right. So I made it. And it was the first time that I really got out of my own way. Like with it was like one camera, single take, the thing just happened, right? It was like happened. And like players are absolutely loving this thing. Right. And it was like, you talk about flow, like we always talk about it in athletic performance and you're talking about it with life. And it happened for me, like with this creation of this thing, like it flowed, and that's, and it's good because it flowed and because I wasn't analytical and because I didn't have to stop and I didn't say that word quite right or whatever, it's like, get the message out, let these people hear it, and then just get out of your own way. And when you can connect like that, it's obviously better. I mean, I've experienced it in different ways on the ice and off the ice, but I love it when it comes to that, when you can experience that flow outside of my usual container, which was always with skates on, So that's fun. And I really encourage that, like that.
And that was that. Yeah. Perfect. And that energy, that the energy field was giving you that information to share and you listened to it, right? You were getting like tapped on the shoulder. Hey, you should do this. You should do this. And you're like, I don't know. Like, and then you're finally like, all right, let's try it. Let's go. And you started it and it was in alignment. So it's just like easy. It's not grindy. And that's when you were in proper alignment. And that's the way that you were intended to be, as just a message deliverer. So you're totally right. Like getting ourselves out of our own way, not making my first challenge, Jason. I don't know if I shared this on the last pod, but I was sitting there and it was like, I heard this voice and it said, you need to help these people. And I'm like, help who? It's like, you know who? I'm like, no, I don't. It's like, yeah, you do. And I'm like, everybody. COVID was going on. I had all these cool things I was doing with my one-on-one clients and they were actually thriving. Their businesses were doubling and tripling, quadrupling during COVID. And God's like, why aren't you sharing this with like everybody? So I'm like, how do I do it? I'd never done a challenge before. Like I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to run Facebook ads. I didn't even barely know how to build slides. And I joined this $25,000 mastermind and they challenged everyone to launch a product within 30 days. I could have done a 1-day webinar. I could have started a YouTube channel. I could have done anything easy. And my brain goes 7-day challenge. And I'm like, what? What am I supposed to share? Well, just do stuff you do with your one-on-one clients. So like, well, they pay me a lot of money for that. I don't want to just give it all away. It's like, no, Dave, this is not about you. This is about everyone else. So get out of the way. I'll handle the rest. So like, when your why is big enough, the how just shows up. The how will show up if your why is big enough. And that is like a game changer, because when I realized how many people needed to hear a good positive message and change the energy of what's going on in their life during COVID, I'm like, people are going to like tune into this thing. And the first challenge was called the Get Your SH !T challenge, Get It Together challenge. And then see, that was when your challenge is called that, you're probably not going to bring in a bunch of people that are just crushing life. Okay. That's why I was getting a lot of those crazy, intense calls.
Yeah.
And then we had 2,500 people show up for that. My friend ran the Facebook ads for free. I was working around the clock. I was building slides 5 minutes before I go live, and I had a day in between. So I'd do a show and I'm like, holy, that went pretty good. What do you think they need tomorrow? I'd build the thing. I'm like, can I rip this for an hour? Yeah, I can do that for an hour. Boom, hit record. People just kept showing up. People kept showing up. Then they tell other people about it, and it started to grow. And we did that for 7 days, spread out over like 20 days. And I formed relationships with those people. And then I loved them like they were my brothers or sisters. And then they became, some of them became clients, and some of them never did. And you know what? They were all served. It had nothing to do with making money. It had nothing. It just showing up and like delivering the message. The next challenge I did was called the Get Your Life Together challenge. We did 2 of those. But same thing. You're not attracting your dream client when that's the name of your challenge, the Get Your Life Together challenge. But that's what I was called to do at the time. And now my challenges are called the Reawaken the Champion Within challenge. And I'm going to create another one this year that's really, really cool, that I just came up with like 2 days ago. It's really awesome. And it's going to blow people's minds with the level of execution in it. People will leave that challenge, whether it's a 5-day or 7-day, that will leave that challenge becoming better and stronger in every category of their life. And so, yeah, man, following the messaging and trusting it. And it's really like faith, right? Like faith is like believing in something that you can't see, but you know it's there and you know it's real. It's like your purpose. And if you really are faithful, like think about it. This is crazy because I don't really talk like this, but if you're truly faithful, you should never be afraid of failing. Like ever. Like it'll work. You'll be taken care of. Whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. So like, just have faith and just rock it. And then if you got to adjust or tweak or whatever later, you can. But like the hardest part is getting started. You know it. Going to the gym, putting your shoes on, getting to the gym. Like that's the hardest part. Once you're in there, it kind of just like takes care of itself. But like showing up every day, that's the hardest part.
Yep. Yeah, for sure, man. So the comeback, is that where you start? Is that where you start, like on the stretcher, or like do you talk about hockey at all? Like,
no. Listen. There's so many cool stories. So like the first 2/3 of the book is all hockey. Okay, so all my hockey fans out there, don't freak out. Don't think this is some crazy book or something that's not about hockey. I share intimately my habits and my routines and the things that I did as a little boy that nobody taught me. I just kind of did them. But looking back on it, like they were the foundation and the building blocks of what made me successful later. And I didn't know that. The thing about the rollerblades, the thing about the ankle weights, the thing about the plates in my backpack, you know, the way that I would think as a little boy, the way that I would like emulate players and how I would play those games, and funny road trips of when I'm driving across Alberta as a 14-year-old without a license, going from Medicine Hat to St. Albert, going from Medicine Hat Tigers camp to St. Albert camp when I've never driven in my life. And my dad just couldn't keep his eyes open. And we had to get to St. Albert by the morning because the practice was going in. We thought Portland might list me if I could get over there. He's like, well, the only way you can go is if you drive, because like I can't keep my eyes open. He'd worked a night shift in the coal mines, and then like he couldn't even function. So I'm driving down the center of these prairie roads by myself. And I thought my dad was joking. Like he'd wake up and correct the wheel and stuff. And like, when you're young and you oversteer, like I was almost in the ditch like 20 times. There was a time when I went to St. Albert Saints Junior Camp when I'm 12 years old, and it was main camp by accident. I was 12 and I wasn't supposed to be there, but somehow we got an invitation, and then we couldn't afford a hotel because we didn't have a lot of money. So I stayed in my dad's coal mining truck that night outside of the rink. It was freezing freaking cold. We were frozen all night long, sleeping in our sleeping bags. I wake up and there's these like big, huge, 18, 19-year-old players getting out of their cars with beards and like chest hair. And I'm like, Dad, are there 2 ice surfaces here? Like, who are these guys? And I walk in and my dad's like, well, we stayed the night in the truck. Like, you want to play one game and see how it goes? I'm like, yeah. So we have to convince the GM that I'm going to go to main camp with these guys. My first shift, line brawl with 2 heavyweights that were put on the ice to protect me. I had my XL7. Remember those helmets and masks? I had an XL7 helmet on and mask, full Cooperalls. I was the only guy in Cooperalls. Everyone else had like shorts and stuff. I couldn't raise a slap shot. So you're doing the half moon circle. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then it's like tink. And it like slowly dribbles. The goalie doesn't even look at my puck. He just goes over and stops all the other ones. But I end up playing amazing after I got over my fear. I had 2 goals and assists in the game winner of the last day of the scrimmage. And I remember driving home and I'm asking my dad about, this is a funny story. I'm embarrassed to share it, but I will. They're like, everyone kept talking about bald eagles in the dressing room, like all the time. And I'm like, why is there bald eagles in St. Albert, Dad? Like, why does everyone keep talking about bald eagles? And like, I had no idea. I was a 12-year-old boy, right? Like I was a little boy, if you guys can get the drift. Like I was showering with the boys. They're talking about bald eagles. Everyone's making caw noises and stuff like that. The whole training camp, I have no idea what they're talking about. And they're talking about little 12-year-old Dave, who, I was a young boy. I hadn't matured at the time. And I'm in the showers with all the big boys, just washing off like I belong. You know what I mean? So, the book's filled with like hundreds of stories like that. I literally we had to cut out like, I don't know, probably like 50 stories and really just take some of the highlight stories because this journey's been so wild. Yeah, it's what a rush. Like, I mean, to be able to sit back and like, it's kind of hard to put how many years, 40, I'm 45 now. So 45 years of content into 270 pages. It's kind of crazy.
No, I agree. And actually now, like you said, things go where they go. I'm grateful that I didn't have a chance to get it in my hands before I even chatted with you, because like I said, you kind of blindsided me. I assumed there'd be something like I knew about the pit, but I didn't know about obviously the comeback, like the NDE, if I'm allowed to use that term. So that was definitely a surprise to me, and the direction of our discussion obviously changed because of that. And we still have yet to talk about your comeback in hockey, which is 100% fine, because really enjoyed the conversation, and I know I'm going to respect your time because you have another show coming up. But we'll do our part here, buddy, to try and keep you at the top of the charts there and stay ahead of Gretter and Mess. So those of you out there, by all means, support Dave. And Dave's story, from what I know of the stories that he shared with me, are absolutely fantastic. And this is now from a hockey perspective, the ability to persevere, to be resilient, to prove people wrong, to keep showing up, to create a higher standard for yourself than others maybe have envisioned. I mean, all these things are so wildly inspirational and motivational, and an element of leadership. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot of people don't have these types of people in their lives, and they've never seen it before, so they don't understand how it could even be that way. And if you can be implanted into that young boy or girl's life, or that adult's life, and be like, oh wow, there is this road, there is this option. Now I can maybe chase it or make that decision myself. You mean amazing stuff. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you with all this. I wish you nothing but the best, and hope you keep helping lives. And we'll have to have part 3 here one day, and we'll get into some more hockey stories. Yeah, let's say part 3. We'll do all hockey, no riffraff. But but Jason's totally right.
like just having an awareness that there may be another way. And if the way that you've been trying hasn't worked, you got nothing to lose to try like another way, right? So I love that. That was really great. And, I can't wait to meet all your audience too. They sound amazing, and keep buying Jason's stuff. He's absolutely crushing it. And, I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak on your stage, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Sketch. Till next time, buddy.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
All right. Thank you for listening to the end, faithful listener. Dave is such a great guest. I always enjoy our conversations. He has a way of communicating in a way that I find really open, and I find him very, very vulnerable. And I find that with that, there's leadership, and there's ownership, and there is a transparency to him that makes the conversation engaging. So I really like anytime I have a chance to speak with Dave, and I'm really proud of Dave for being able to do what he's doing, not only with his work, but also with his book, and to share that with others. And now that he's finally in a place, as he talked about in the interview, to be able to share that story, and where he is now, and the fact that it's also making a difference. Being courageous enough to act in the service of others is pretty powerful. It's something that I try and be courageous with every day. It's really the foundation and genesis of this podcast is to recognize what my own shortcomings were in the hockey world, to be able to dig into those, and to be curious about it, and to investigate and find out how what I learned from my own experience could help others. So the acknowledgement and the vulnerability and the courage involved in doing that to get me to here has also helped many hockey players. So I encourage us all to find in our own lives ways that we can give back, ways that we can be of service to others, because when we go to bed at night and we wake up in the morning, it really does connect. It connects with what being human is, and I do think that is being of service. So Dave, thank you for being of service, and for everyone else out there, you know what to do. You play hard, keep your head up. Cheers.